So this guy Denji now has a chainsaw for a head after he fused with his dog. And just off that alone, I had to see what all the hype is about. Hello, my name is Rice Gohan, and today we are discussing Chainsaw Man Season 1. Spoilers ahead. So for this one, I decided to break this video down into sections. We're going to describe different aspects of the show and briefly, and maybe at some times not so briefly, discuss my take and how I feel about each different aspect of this show. So first up, we'll discuss the characters. Overall, I feel very meh about the characters. And the thing is, it's not that they're bad characters, is that I think that the characters don't exactly get enough personal time with the audience or the viewer, so we can feel that we know them at a more deeper and impactful level. But I'd have to say off the bat, one of my favorites is Power, for very obvious reasons. I think the voice actor for the English dub is very great. I like the way she enunciates certain words and the strange accent that she uses. Aki is pretty cool, but again, by the end of season 1, I don't know a ton about him. Denji being the main character, he's pretty cool, but comes off a bit creepy with the touching and the kissing and the obsession with that. It's a bit much. Makima is pretty interesting. I feel that she has the most intrigue and the character that I want to learn the most about based off of the little bit that I know so far. Nextly, we'll move on to the story. So far by the end of season 1, the general breakdown is Division 4, this Avenger-style team of misfits and anomalies are tasked with finding and eliminating the Gun Devil. So throughout the story, we fight a few of these devils, and with that, we'll talk a little bit about the action scenes. My take on most of the action in this show is that it's pretty interesting, but a little confusing and all over the place. This is mostly due to when the action sort of starts, the camera is extremely close to where the action is taking place, so close to the point where you can't really get a full perspective on where the battle is taking place, where certain characters are in with reference to another character, and then it just feels like a entire jumbled mess. And I get the idea of trying to depict something moving so fast that it is confusing, but it's done in a way that feels very sloppy and incoherent. Also, side note about the action. One thing about most action scenes is they're more impactful when you care and understand and have some sort of stake in the fight that is going on screen. And I feel that that is where some of these action scenes in this show suffer. Many of the main characters aren't necessarily developed well enough, but also many of the devils that come on screen are very underdeveloped as well, and they come off very cartoonishly evil, which sort of takes you out of the moment. Speaking of moments, let's talk about the pacing. With regards to pacing, I wouldn't say that this is the most egregious case that I've seen. I've certainly seen some insanely badly paced anime. I'm looking at you, Tokyo Ghoul. But there are moments where I wish that the show would take a moment to slow down and let me absorb what's happening on screen. And I wish that it didn't feel so rushed at times, and then at other times it feels very slow. Like, for example, we spend a lot of time with Denji and Himino, which I think that's how you pronounce her name, and they're just talking about nothing really. And it doesn't really reveal anything about either character. I see what they were going for with the idea of inserting a bit of shock value and thrill, but for me, it just misses the mark. Next, we're going to discuss the soundtrack. The soundtrack might be one of the strongest aspects of the show. I think the opening is really cool and creative, and I saw in an Instagram reel or a YouTube short, one of the two, that said it had a ton of movie references, and I thought that was a cool aspect if that is the case. But beyond that, I think the constant shifting of camera angles and the depiction of certain character personalities through facial expressions and movements and non-verbal communication was very well done in this opening. But also, I'm learning very quickly that I am a sucker for dancing and openings and endings like this part here. So nextly, we're going to discuss the impact / the moments in the show. So every anime typically has these tentpole moments where something happened and it leaves a lasting impression on the viewer. I noticed a few attempts at this within Chainsaw Man. One example of this is within the first episode when Denji first fuses with Panchito Pochito. I get the sense that this moment is supposed to be impactful or show you the level of relationship between these two characters, But as this moment happens, I find that I don't feel a whole lot of anything. And to me that really sucks because the moment has a ton of potential, and if it was handled in a slightly different way, I feel it could have accomplished what it was attempting. With regards to voice acting, everyone is doing a decent to amazing job. I do, however, prefer the original Japanese voice acting over the English acting. Next up, we're going to discuss the tone and the messaging within the show. The tone and the messaging is very much all over the place, and sometimes it creeps me out even. We have Makima manipulating Denji into doing whatever she wants, and Denji being 16 but having the maturity level of about an 8-year-old. Something feels extra weird about that, the fact that Makima is taking advantage of him in this way. But then I can't exactly feel bad for Denji because Denji is going around making deals to fondle people and to kiss people and to have these sort of unconsensual like blurry line consensual interactions, and again it's just very odd to watch. Then we get to other things like Himeno dragging an incapacitated Denji back to her place after vomiting in his mouth, and that's even weird before you bring in the age difference between these two characters. All in all, my biggest problem with the tone and the messaging in the show is that it's very inconsistent. And sometimes it feels like the show is trying to say something, but then usually within the next scene, we lose all sympathy for the character that we almost got some development on because they do something very trashy, lame, or creepy. Overall, I give season 1 of Chainsaw Man a 6.5 out of 10, with that 0.5 being heavily carried by both the soundtrack and the voice acting. What do you think about this rating? Would you go higher, maybe lower? Let me know in the comments. And with that, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.